to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
If anyone tells you that your hair is too big, get rid of them. You don't need that negativity in your life.
And Dale Hummel.
A dead thing can go with the stream, but only a living thing can go against it.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, hello from Broken Bow Lake in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah, I tried to explain to you, sir, that there was nothing on the Oklahoma-Arkansas border that was called civilization, and all the problems that you have had this week, they're self-inflicted. I also want the listeners to know that I warned him about all this beforehand, did all this. All he's done is bitch and complain the entire time he's been there after he drove 10 hours to get there. And he still will not tell me how much he is paying per night to stay in a cabin that has no Wi-Fi, no self-service. They can't run a boat. Everything's underwater. And he is currently in his truck using OnStar to record this podcast.
That is partially accurate. I will address
Partially?
Address
No. That all of that is accurate.
I will address those. I cannot tell you how much it costs. My lovely wife reserved this cabin, and it is an amazing cabin. It has no outhouses. It has running water.
That is not what you said 2 days ago when you got there.
I was a little concerned about the cost of the place, and
you told me you had a bathroom on the porch.
I may not have been telling the truth.
Exactly.
But it is an amazing cabin. So outside of the fact we have zero cell service and Wi-Fi, we currently have a gentleman from Pines Internet in there now trying to fix the Wi-Fi. It is an amazing place. We're tucked back into some hills or mountains. I love everything about this other than the technical issues. And it wouldn't be a big deal, but I did have a sale yesterday and I physically could not.
And my goat got sold for far too little money because you had no Wi-Fi or something.
Well, no, I don't think that the goat brought good money. He brought plenty
Not
of money.
Enough.
No,
Not enough. Not enough.
Plenty of money.
Not enough.
For a goat. Yes, it's
Nope.
enough.
Nope.
So
Absolutely not.
It was painful on every level.
I do not think the goat should be sold.
If I had to communicate with a buyer, it would have to be through FaceTime, and that's pretty hard to explain. But I did.
I do not think the goat should be sold.
I did communicate. We did get the goat sold.
Nope.
They went to some great homes. I'm thrilled. Ryan, there is one thing that does concern me here. One of the worst things. I went by I believe, I don't even.
That you're going to jail because I'm calling CPS for selling my goat.
Thank you. My kids also thank you for trying to stand up for their rights and their privilege, I guess you could call it.
I am all about the children.
I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I am all about the children and a business. So we have a restaurant or something nearby here, a few miles away, that I drove by, and the sign, the name of it is called Chiggers. Do you want me to tell you about Chiggers and what I think of that name?
You had Chiggers on another vacation that lasted 6 months, and we've talked about this
Oh,
forever.
It was terrible. Why would somebody name a restaurant or a place? I don't even know what it was. I just saw the sign Chiggers, and I kept driving.
And you just drove right on by because you couldn't even.
I kept driving.
Flashbacks.
There was a highlight that my son Chase and I very much enjoyed, and it kind of shocked me a little bit. I've been to the Pro Bass Shop in Springfield, Missouri a few times, but never once did I go back to what's called the aquarium that you have to spend, I believe, was $44 per person to go through, which I thought was a little expensive. I thought, well, wow, this cannot be that good. Not only do they have
probably
fish.
Spending $4,400 per night on a cabin that doesn't have Wi-Fi or cell service, but $44 is too much.
It is not $4,400 a night. Anyway, At the Pro Bass Shop, I'm sure many of our listeners have been there, but it's not just an aquarium. It is the most amazing aquarium, animal habitat, enriched. It's amazing, right? I can't, of all the places I've been, whether it be in Thailand, Singapore, Australia, South Africa, for animal encounters, this one was as impressive as any. And it's right there in Springfield, Missouri, in the Pro Bass Shop. Extremely, extremely well done. I'm overwhelmed by how cool it was. So I think you should fly in there, Ryan, and take a visit.
You know what? Missouri doesn't like me. I don't know why Missouri doesn't like me. I've only sorted there one time. They don't like me.
Well, I can understand that.
You don't like me because I tell the truth. That has nothing to do with the fact I don't sort in Missouri. But anyway.
The truth is not $4,400 a night in the cabin. I do not know the price.
I bet I'm closer to $4,400 than you are $44, sir.
I cannot answer that question.
Exactly. I want to get onto something important.
Go ahead.
Did you know that for the first time ever, Camel Toe Harris said, "Don't come"?
I'm not going to approach this one. I'm leaving this one alone.
She told him, "Do not come."
Who? When she was down in, where was she? Central America somewhere.
No, she's on a foreign visit, but they were talking about there's a new migrant caravan making its way from way south central South America, and she addressed it, and she said, "Don't come."
Wow.
Because more than likely you will be turned away at the border.
Do you remember our last episode?
It was last week. Oh yeah.
What was the title?
The title of the episode?
Yes.
Why does this matter?
Answer the
Practice
question.
what you preach? Why does this matter?
Now, is she just giving lip service that saying don't come?
No,
when we're allowing them through the border as fast as they want to come in?
No, because like AOC and the squad ripped her apart and she doubled down on it. Like she literally said, "You're going to get turned away." She's
but they're not turning them away. They're not. Ryan,
This is a brand new caravan of like hundreds of
thousands. What about the hundreds and thousands coming across every day? We
Dude, at least she's adopting a new policy. Give her
I think
a little credit.
I think it's crap. I don't believe it. I hope. I was at the border 2 weeks ago. I did not get to go down to where we interviewed our Border Patrol agent, but I was on the border sorting through recipient goats approximately.
That worked out real well for him, too.
Anyway, so when I get there, there's 2 state patrolmen on the road to turn to go to this place, and I did not hesitate. I stopped and asked them, and they're basically saying that they're doing everything they possibly can, and what they're targeting is not the people coming across because they can't physically do it all. But they're trying to stop the drug flow. They're trying to stop any of the suspicious gang members, things like that. But they basically admitted to me it was impossible. The ranch owners down there talk about, instead of just Mexicans coming across to work, it's the biggest flood they've ever encountered. It's out of control in every aspect. And the words that Kamala talks about, "don't come," I have a hard time believing they're going to. If that is the case, why don't we shut the border down? Why don't we build the wall?
I am in agreement on all of that, sir. Which, by the way, Governor Abbott is saying that he's going to finish the wall building. I don't know how he thinks he's going to do that. But anyway.
And I will donate to that cause. I will donate to the cause.
But I think this is probably the worst administration in history. But I am mildly impressed that she at least did say out of her own mouth, told this new caravan to stop and not come.
No, I'm with you. That's a start. If there's any sincerity to it whatsoever.
Well, and then she got called out by, the way crazy liberals, and she doubled down on it, and so is her office staff and whatever. So
AOC's
evidently they know this is a way bigger issue than they wanted to give light to, and this new caravan is a problem for them, and so this, because Biden hasn't addressed it at all.
Isn't it amazing?
She is the czar of the border problem.
How is this possible that we've shed no light on it? We don't talk about it. It just doesn't exist.
Well, she went on the first foreign trip, and now she's going to figure it all out.
With that said, AOC, do you hear what she came out again about our jail system and prisons?
There shouldn't be any.
No, shut them down, redirect all that money to social programs, and that will alleviate the problem. How's that working out so far?
Let all the criminals free.
Yeah, and don't punish any of the criminals. Don't.
No.
That I promise you that is going to work out very well.
I hope they kill her first.
Speaking of your fearless leader, the one that is your president and mine, I guess. Did you hear anything about...
He is the president of the United States, and you're in the United States, sir, and you're an American citizen. So, yeah, as much as we may dislike it, he's your president, too, bub.
Did you hear what he claimed, the comment he made about the biggest threat to our society, to the United States democracy?
I have no idea.
It is not Russia. It is not China. It is not our crazy man in North Korea. It's not Iran. None of those things. It's not any of that. It is white supremacy right here in-house.
That's right.
How is this possible? This man is senile. He needs to be gone. But then you have Camellia, that is going to come in. And I truly believe she may be cognitive, but she's ignorant to anything in the real world.
Well, he did at some point since the last podcast recording, and again, I've been traveling a lot, so my days are all kind of. He basically got asked a question or said something that alluded to the fact that made all the reporters jump on the fact that he will not be running again, and she will be.
It appears as though she's going to have plenty running against her in the primary.
Oh, well, yeah.
She was such a success in the first Democratic primary.
I don't think if either, like, there was also on the Clinton News Network, CNN, when this all came out, they even said that even if they thought that this might be the first time a sitting president had an actual challenger in the primary, even if Joe stayed on, that they thought people would run against him being a sitting president in the party.
That's not a good sign. What do you think?
Yes, terrible sign.
Do you think some of this is coming from our critical race theory?
I think it's the fact he's just that terrible.
I think the fact that he talks about uniting the country and he's doing nothing but dividing it. I'll say it. What is causing racial divide in the U.S., Ryan?
People talking about it.
Absolutely.
And acting like,
yeah.
I am not saying that there is not some level of racism still in our country. There is a level of racism in everywhere in the world. And I know what it's like to be discriminated against and all this other stuff, not because of my skin color, because of my sexual preference. I get it. The issue is there's a whole bunch of people that have microphones and TV cameras, and they got bored and decided they were going to make this a bigger issue than what it has been. Because I'm going to say again, if racism was truly as terrible as what they're making it out to be on the mainstream media, then why did not Barack Obama, the first African-American president, do anything to address this?
It's amazing to me. It's out of control. Ryan,
send me the hate mail. I don't care.
Yeah, I would like to take this hate mail. I direct it all to me because I will take 100% responsibility that our country is more divided because of this push on critical race theory. And I agree with Ryan. There is racist out there. There always will be. There will be a small segment of the population that you are not going to change. But when you start giving preferential treatment to, an example, Harvard University, preferential treatment is going to go to Black and other minorities for heart surgeries and other health issues prior to anybody of the white skin color. Again, I don't think it should be one way or another. Who needs a treatment needs to get it. I could care less what anybody's skin color is. Let's let them prove themselves for what they are. We have companies like Coke and American Airlines that are 100% woke. They're on board with this. Social media, big tech, they're all pushing this way. And I promise you, this is dividing us more than it's ever been in the past. And it's so simple to see. I don't know if our fearless leader, Joe, understands this, and he's just doing it to get that vote secured, which is possible. I think some on the left understand we're dividing the country more. They don't care because of self-preservation. They get reelected. Others probably see it as an issue that they truly believe in. I believe AOC thinks this is real, but I think she's a nutcase.
Well, she also, she thinks it's real, but again, what you said, nutcase isn't even close to what that woman is. But that was the only narrative they had to run on.
It was
against Trump. And so that's what they did. And again, it was successful because Biden is in office. I don't think it's gonna stick.
No, and they keep pushing it.
They're gonna continue to push it, and that's fine. But I will say again, the independent voters of this country decide 90% of the elections, and the one thing about independent voters, they are the most informed, the most well researched, all of these things. I don't think they're going to buy this bunch of bullshit in another 4 years. I don't think they're going to buy it in another 2 years. I actually think the Democrats are running exceptionally scared of what's going to happen to the House and the Senate next year.
What about all the voters coming across the border?
Well, they're all going to Ohio, so we're going to lose that. But
Got it. So while Camelia's down in Central America, do you realize we're about to give billions of dollars to Central and South America? And you want me to tell you we're giving it to those politically corrupt politicians and probably some of the drug cartel? I highly doubt one single dollar is going to go where it should
to
go.
someone that needs it.
Yeah. I mean, it's
right.
too corrupt. The cartel has too much control. It's senseless. We have a way of funding those that oppose us. Think about how we funded the Wuhan lab through Dr. Fauci. Oh no, he didn't fund anything that was going to go there to cause any trouble. No question. That
Why didn't Hillary just help him delete his emails?
I don't know. Should have bleached and sledgehammered him. All those things.
I mean, like, she needed to be more of a friend to Dr. Fauci. She was not a nice person. She could have helped him out.
So we're going to give money to the corrupt politicians in Central and South America, the drug cartel, Wuhan lab. We're giving money to Hamas. We've given money to Iran. We've given money to all of those that oppose us. Why? Help me here, Ryan. Why?
I can't. Again, this one of the biggest issues I had with everything that was so screwed up, lied about, made nonsense of during the Trump administration. I do not, still to this day, will never understand why everyone bashed him for his America First theory, nationalism, all this other stuff, because I thought that was one of the greatest things he did, is that he put America first. He cut way back on sending all this bullshit money to places that it wasn't ever going to get to the people in need and all this other stuff. And like that part of it is what kind of pushed this narrative that we're talking about, that he was racist, homophobic, all this other stuff.
They used it to push that narrative.
Right. And all it was is that he wanted to take care of Americans first. And I still...
Real simple.
I've never understood how he did not... How that theory of his... I don't see... I mean, I get if you don't like him, but how can you go against the fact, let's put the citizens of this country and what America needs first?
Yeah, and another example out of the White House right now with Biden, they have money going to every adversary you can imagine. Some examples that we've already given. Guess how much they have for increase in our defense and our homeland security?
Zero.
Zero. Yet we can support those that are going to probably attack us or would like to see us not exist.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing to me. I can't understand why the populace of the United States doesn't see it as clearly as you and I, and doesn't stand up and speak out and get them out.
It's a strange, strange world we live in these days.
Okay, I have one more current topic, two more real quick ones.
Uh-huh.
One's not as exciting, but could be devastating for industry. I haven't talked about Proposition 16 in Colorado for a little bit. I'm going to make a very short statement on this, and I need our listeners' help because I did research it earlier. I did not find one centralized organization that you can donate to. I know we can donate to the Farm Bureau, to the Cattlemen's, but there's not a simple system to donate. It appears, Ryan, I hope I'm wrong. I spoke to a couple individuals recently. It appears as though that initiative is going to get on the ballot. They're close to having enough. That is, I am fearful.
Very bad. Very bad.
I believe it will get on the ballot, and I'm fearful it will pass because of the crazies. Now, we can stop it. If we had the biggest educational push from animal agriculture in general, not just from Colorado, but everybody from the outside donating, helping, all those things, I think you could educate the public enough to defeat it. But it's going to take a monster campaign, and it's going to be it's going to be more complicated and more involved than what we've maybe ever encountered. But if we do not stop it, don't think it's just Colorado. It's going to spread. So those of you listening out there, if there's a central place that we can donate, that we can offer services, whatever we need to do, please Facebook message, text, call, whatever you can do to get a hold of myself or Ryan so we can push this out there and try to help all we can, because it scares the shit out of me.
Ooh, I did not know that. led you to the conclusion that it's going to get on the ballot?
I spoke to Matt Clays the other day, and he'd researched it a little bit and been visiting with people in Colorado, and those in the know say that they're very close on their signatures, and it wasn't a very high number of signatures. So I never had a doubt that if they put any effort out whatsoever, they would get the signatures. Once they have the signatures, to my knowledge, it goes on the ballot. I hope I'm missing something, and I hope our listeners can correct me and re-guide me on that, but I am very, very fearful. The last thing, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Oh my God.
Real quick, I did research it deeper. We talked about Trump signing a bill. He did. It was in the COVID relief bill that the defense secretary had to coordinate with national intelligence to release all data concerning UAPs, which we can just call them UFOs. So that Trump did initiate all this coming out, and it's supposed to come out yet later this month. The leaks that are coming out from that, the politicians are all saying, the people of the intelligence agency are saying, Russia and China cannot be that much more advanced to do this. My youngest son, Chase, says they are. He said, quantum leaps in technology happen through accidents. Maybe a couple random accidents happen that they capitalize on. He goes way deep into it, wants to argue with me nonstop about it. I do not believe, if the information we're receiving is correct on the abilities of these objects that are in the air and water, can do what they're claiming they can do, I do not believe China and Russia have that technology that much further advanced than ourselves. And this goes all the way back to 2004 of some of these amazing things happening in propulsion and things like that just can't. So you can't tell me they're that far ahead. Nobody is saying this is aliens. I'm not saying it's aliens. What I am saying is, check off all the things that it cannot be. And I don't have much left.
I'm going to say that I don't think it's China or Russia. And other than that, I think it's open to any possibility, whatever you want to call them. But again, you argue with me on this. I have never said that there is not another intelligent form of life out there. I've never even, before we even had this podcast, I've never not believed that. I don't know if you need to call them aliens or whatever you want to call them, but it's there. I firmly think that there is other intelligent forms of life out somewhere in a different solar system or whatever, different planet, all this other stuff. And maybe they are trying to communicate with us and doing a poor job. Who knows? But I refuse to believe that it's another country that's doing it.
I think they're sitting back laughing at our sorry asses. Entertainment value.
Probably
that's
true.
What I would do if I had that type of technology. So with that said, it's easy for me. It's not China. It's not Russia. I don't know. So the conclusion is either the military, the information that they have is false, inaccurate, which it could be. I don't know. It's either inaccurate or there's something out there that we're totally unaware of. Those are the only two possibilities. And I don't know which one it is. If the military's information is accurate, I'm gonna bank on the Martian theory.
I think it's I'm gonna say again, I don't think this is another country's technology.
No, I hope not. Dr. Fauci, connect the dots. He's falling down. The bricks are crumbling, Ryan.
Poor Fauci.
No, he is a rotten. He needs to be.
That's your brother.
Treasonous is what I call him. Treasonous.
Yeah. Well, if Trump was in office, this sumbitch would at least be fired.
I don't know why Trump allowed him to stay in office, just because I think he would have gotten too many darts thrown at him if he would have ousted him, I assume.
Oh, yeah, that was the whole thing. If he would have got reelected, he would have fired him.
Yes, I agree. Are you ready for main topic? We probably went a little long in current events, but I thought it was really good, Ryan.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it.
What can we change about our show? What can show management do to create the ideal show? That's a question we get a lot of times when we're out judging, and Ryan probably gets it more than anybody. At the end of the show, the superintendent or the show management comes up to you and says, what can we change to make it better? Ryan, what can we do?
There's a long list. And again,
let's work through them.
This isn't to like any one show or anything like that, but like there are things, and some of them are going to sound so simple and stupid. People are going to be like, really? That matters? But yeah.
It does when they happen.
I mean, there's there's lots of little stuff uh, that goes into making the show better for everyone involved. And
think about it, Ryan, when you leave a show, and obviously quality of livestock and the quality of kids, all that is huge. But this comes into play as well. If everything was done well, it puts you in the mindset to do the best job you can. Not that you aren't, even if it's not, but you just get a sense of appreciation, and it goes so much better when you leave there. You think, wow, that was well run. I think the exhibitors, the spectators, everybody had a good experience, partially because the show management did everything they possibly could correctly.
No. And again, I think the first thing, and a rule of thumb that's going to sound really stupid and probably pretty weak. It starts before you ever get there. And the first thing that I would say is transparency and keeping people informed, and whatever you put out there as far as rules or payback or awards, you're going to have to follow through with that. I think that, again, it starts before the show anybody ever gets there, but that is very important.
Agreed. I think we can go down a lot of different, and Ryan's talking about before the show even starts. What about advertising? Have that flyer on social media, wherever you can get. Make sure it's well known. If you're bringing Ryan Rash into whatever state in the country that maybe they weren't expecting to be there, maybe if you let people know, you're going to get more people to show up. It appears as though many are doing that.
And again, this isn't directed at any one person or show or anything, but like, if you send me a flyer or whatever, then yeah, I will help promote it and all this stuff. But like, people don't understand. I get tagged in so many things on social media, all this stuff, that I just don't look at them all. And so a lot of times I get, well, you didn't promote our show on social media. You didn't send me anything. Well, we tagged you in it. I was like, it's not the same thing. So, and it doesn't matter if it's just me or any judge. If the more you put things out there and the more you publicize your show, the better off you're going to be. And one of the easiest ways to do that is not just if you have me judge or whoever judges, but every show is going to have sponsors, whether they're local sponsors or national sponsors or anything like that. And like, use them as well, because they're going to have a bigger social media presence than what your show is in a lot of times, unless you're a state fair, a major show, or one of the huge jackpots. All those sponsors that you get that are donating to you, not only does it give them recognition for sponsoring your show, it's going to make more people aware that you're having one.
Exactly. And I think that's important. And I see some shows that get it out there, others don't, and you're really searching. I mean, when I go to figure out what shows my kids are going to, it's more difficult to find that information than maybe it should be. So let's do the best we can. Some are doing an amazing job.
Yeah, and there's different show groups on Facebook especially and stuff like that. So join those, put that flyer out there, and the ones that's around your area, all that other stuff. But whatever you advertise, whatever you say you're going to do, we got to make sure that we follow through that. And again, putting it out there for more people to see and being transparent is probably, again, that's before the show, but that's important and something that needs to happen.
I think a good example, Ryan, of one that I've seen on social media quite a bit, and I'm not even searching for it, it's just showing up. I'm sure I was tagged in it, is the Boomtown Blowout, the Texas show.
Yeah.
It's not until fall, correct?
What's the last weekend in August, sir? You're judging it. You should know.
Yes. Well, I don't have my calendar open, but I think that most people are probably aware in that area.
You lose all sense of time and direction when you're in nowhere, Arkansas, Oklahoma?
No, I lose that sense of direction wherever I'm at. The calendars and me, I've got to do better. Let's talk about sound systems at the shows, Ryan. And that seems crazy, but some of these county fairgrounds and other shows, Illinois State Fairground and some of the buildings, we have systems that were in place 70 years ago, I swear. that maybe when you start talking in the microphone, nobody can understand what you're saying. When you're calling for classes in the back barn, nobody can. I know that it costs money. I understand this, but I've been to enough shows that they bring in a portable system, whether it's in a back barn and or in the show ring, that's pretty darn good. I don't know what they cost, but I can assure you from a judge's standpoint, being able to be heard clearly is important. And those that are trying to get animals ready to come to the ring, they need to hear in the back. We need to make sure that works. We can supplement that with apps on our phone to update where they're at in classes. I think it's good. Those spectators that show up, I think they'd like to hear what Ryan Rash has to say, or what whoever has to say.
I think sound system is the most underrated thing that happens at a show. I think it is probably the most important in all areas of show management, and not just because the judge wants, whether you're the judge or you're someone that's paying to hear that judge's opinion, it is letting people know what's going on, what class is in there, you've got to know what's going on everywhere, because some of these shows are multiple rings, some of these shows, they're huge, and if you don't have a sound system in place or an announcer that's trying to keep people informed of things, look at how many shows do you go to? And I like the fact that we're using apps, and we try to post on social media, class 5 Bergs to the makeup ray and, all that stuff. There's a lot of shows that I go to that there's not very good cell service in some of the parts of the barn or all of the parts of the barn. And I'm not just talking about, a jackpot show. I'm talking about major shows where there's no cell service in parts of the barn or all of the barn. And so if you don't have a sound system that everyone can hear clearly and goes to everyone there, then you got issues, because now more than ever, a lot of people are showing off their trailers in all species. And so, yeah, you're not going to have a sound system that gets out to those people, but those people that show off the trailers normally are pretty good about keeping up with things because they know they're not going to hear it. So, sound system's huge.
And while we're on that, Ryan, I think if we can, and not all shows you're going to be able to get this done, but if you have a local person that's capable of being an announcer and obviously understands it and calls for those classes, somebody that's familiar with the show ring, and then maybe even announcing the kids as they walk out of the ring in terms of first, second, third, or not out of the ring, but while the judge is sorting the class, announce your top 5 or top 10, whatever it may have been. And I want to go a step further, and I've already talked about this once, and maybe I'm way off track, but this is huge to me. If physically possible, I want to hear the national anthem at every show I participate in, judge, associated with in any manner. And the Texas shows are really good about it. You find it in some other parts of the country. It needs to be done now more than ever, period.
And when we talked about this before, I don't remember what podcast or how we got on this topic, but even if you just play it on your phone and hold the mic there, because not everybody's going to have someone that can sing live or whatever, but yeah, it's a nice touch and a nice way to start. And I agree. I think it should happen at every show.
And we hit on the last episode, I believe. I'm good. And remember the organ playing at Louisville we talked about, Ryan, kind of as background music?
Oh, Cherie's favorite aspect of any show in America.
I mean, just some background music to get through that awkward silence is makes it easier for people to applaud and engage. And I know it sounds stupid, but I think there's a psychological aspect to having some type of background music that is going to get people more engaged and feeling better. And it's just good. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of background music too. Again, I think at the shows that do it or whatever, a lot of them are like, "What kind of tunes do you like?" I'm like, "I don't care." So just play something and something. It also gives me a thing to make fun of the announcer when they play bad tunes. I'm like, "Really? That's what you thought we needed during this class? Thank you." But
and while we're talking about announcers, let's try to build up when they're coming back in for champion. But do what we can to introduce those kids. I know Ryan and I did our live show at Oklahoma City at OYE, and that is huge. And not everybody's going to be able to do that, but the more you can go that direction, however minor it may be, to make those kids feel pretty special coming back in, that's a big deal. I like it. I think it's great. You got an announcer that does a nice job. That in itself can build some of that hype up a little bit.
Yeah, and talking about announcers and stuff like that, one thing that just a general rule of thumb, and there's going to be a lot of these during this deal. Shows are run by volunteers more times than not, and that's at every level. Even like the Houston Livestock Show has the biggest network of volunteer people probably in the history of the world, and so volunteers make it all happen. And you never want to turn down help, and I get that part of it. But while we're not going to turn down help and we're not going to turn down a volunteer, in the important, there are positions that are more important than others. And so in those important positions, let's try to get livestock-minded, livestock experienced people in those positions.
Excellent. And Houston's a great example. I mean, I don't even want to put a number on the volunteers, but it overwhelms me when I stop and think about it. And I appreciate everybody.
There's a waiting list to get on every volunteer committee at the Houston Stock Show.
To volunteer,
that's insane.
And we're not talking just a couple hours. We're talking during the entire show. Some of those people are there.
Right.
It's a vacation from work for them. Yeah.
Yeah. They take off. They spend their vacation volunteering at the Houston Stock Show.
So while we're talking about volunteers, I think we can roll right into ring help, and most of I promise you, ring help or not.
Ooh, don't get me started on this.
Be nice. We've touched on it before. And as Ryan,
no, I'm not going to be rude about the ring help or the volunteers, but this is simple. And again, I judge every week, every weekend. You have to have one person that is dedicated just to riding the placings that does nothing else. And you have to have two other people in the ring. I don't care what species it is.
Two.
That are there.
Two.
Okay. Two other people in that ring that are there dedicated solely to assisting the other exhibitors. I don't care if it's sheep, goats, pigs, cattle, two. Because in the species that are on halters or handheld, there needs to be one person that's leading the kids around the ring when we're moving and another one tailing the ones that won't go. And in hogs, there needs to be at least two people with boards ready, regardless if one gets in a corner and won't get out, one fights with another one. And I would prefer three, but you got to have two that are solely dedicated to assisting other exhibitors, because that person that's writing down the placings, that's all they need to do.
Agreed. And I want to take it a step further. I want a person in the ring, if it's cattle, that's twisted the tail of a calf to get them going before.
That's what I said.
I want somebody that's done it and is capable of doing it, not afraid of getting behind them. And what I would like to also emphasize, and again, these people are volunteering and we can't expect them to know or understand all species. Goats are the worst about moving around the ring, whether you have a chain, a halter, nothing on them. Some just do not go, and I think you have more issues with that. Ring help, please do not grab them by the tail, lift their hind legs off the ground, and expect them to go. They aren't going to go.
Why not?
And that tail is going to go down, and you've just destroyed that kid's chance of anything. So I instruct my families and my kids to politely explain to the ring help, please don't touch their tail. Please don't grab their tail. As politely as we possibly can. The other thing, and again,
the little tail's so cute.
I'm going to use this goat ring as an example. Whether it's a halter or a chain, sometimes if we have a little kid on there and it won't go, the ring help will grab a hold and pretty much drag them around the ring. And with a goat, I would rather see you pick that goat up and carry the damn thing. Just carry it around.
I like people that do that.
I'm okay with that. Because sometimes they are not going to go, period.
Because normally it's the real small ones that don't do it anyway, that are that way. And I'm serious. I've seen several kids do that, and I like it. But
yeah,
on a serious topic, I know the tail and all this other stuff. But other than picking the goat up and carrying it, how do you suggest there's somebody in a ring that's wanting to assist somebody the goat won't go? Because that slapping your leg trying to make it move, that doesn't work either.
No, I think we get the showman and or the ring help behind the shoulder, Dr. Grandin's point of balance, and do what we can to shoo them, slap, tap the ribs, whatever you can do. Sometimes when they just refuse to, I will take my hand right underneath the base of their tail with my 3 or 4 fingers and use that as a pressure point just to push them along. Not grabbing the tail.
Just don't touch the tail.
You're going to probably touch it, but sometimes you're not going to have a choice. And sometimes in all seriousness, some of those goats will not go. Pick the damn thing up and carry it if you can.
No,
that sounds
get
crazy.
The picking it up, but like I'm not just being honest, and it doesn't matter if it's a kid or whatever. When the goat won't go and they're slapping their leg, I'm like, that's not doing anything.
Now some of the goats that hesitate, that will help to keep them going, but not when they're just stopped out going nowhere.
I don't think it really helps. But
I think the training at home with slapping the leg with other stimulation, when they're slapping the leg, some of them do get trained to go when they do it. Not always, but some of them.
Okay.
But I think it's taking outside sources that we're going to leave alone right now. This does make the judge, when you get done with that show, Ryan, if you have that ideal situation you're talking about, the one person recording placings, the 2 people in the ring helping, the one calling in the classes, if you have all that in place, when you leave that show, you're far less exhausted mentally and physically.
And I think that is right, because I'm not a good example because I judge a lot quicker than most. So a lot of shows, I have to pull way more weight than just sorting the show, because I do sort them so quickly that I have to go back and tell the person in the ring, no, it's that one's 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 after I've already placed it, because they're like, okay, you were too quick, you've done it. Having to push animals around, assist exhibitors, or the thing that is the most annoying to me as a judge is we know that maybe not every jackpot show is going to have adequate ring help. As exhibitors and as parents of exhibitors, if you're going to send your kid in first, they need to know where they need to go. Because if I have to tell every single class, okay, pull forward, lead out here, go around, profile over there, I get annoyed. And that happens more times than not.
It happens too often. And I'm going to make a plea. Just bring exhibitors, parents, 4-H, FFA, bring those kids up to have them watch at least one class just so they know the mechanics of how to get around the ring. And I tell you what, those that come in and they just get it, Ryan, they know it. I appreciate
you.
You
appreciate them so much more.
You remember that subconscious and how they're going to get along?
Again, that's the thing. Like, I know people think that when I first said that, and I continue to say this subconscious stuff, that like, that really doesn't matter. It matters so much.
I think it's more than what we want to.
No, I know it. That's why I brought this up on this podcast months ago. And like, people don't want to realize that, and I don't care even if you're the judge, you don't want to admit that, but there are subtle things like that that affect the placings and affect the outcome way more than we want to admit. And so y'all may think I'm crazy for saying it, but at least I'm admitting it and know that those things, so I'm aware of it. But yeah,
no different than that scowl you get from pulling that boy or girl in fourth and they're coming back in later. All of it comes into play. All of it.
Since we're on ring help and all this other stuff, I'm just going to say this, and now that I say this, I will be doomed. I have yet to be at a show or judge a show where there was too much ring help. Now, I say this, and God help me next weekend or whatever, or 2 weeks from now, somewhere in the next month, I will be at one. But I also want to say, as far as people in the ring, let that sorter guide you as to how much personal interaction they want to have. And that sounds odd, but when you're out there and you're trying to do your job to the best of your ability, and I get all kinds of people who don't want to talk to me at all because they may not like me or like, my vibe, to people that absolutely love and adore me and all they want to do is talk. If you'll let that person guide you onto how much interaction there is, it's going to be more comfortable for them, because I don't think anybody ever wants to come off as rude in a ring. So if you're trying to talk to that man or woman judging too much and they're trying to concentrate on their job, they're not going to come across as rude, but so they're not going to say, hey, I need to worry about this. Just let that person guide you into how much conversation, how much attention they want. And there's lots of times that, especially in between classes, I love to talk to the people in the ring or at the table and stuff like that. But when I'm in the heat of it, in that class, I don't want many people around, like in my personal space or talking to me, unless it is like a concern about, is that one supposed to be 8th or is that one supposed to be 9th? That I get, you have to come up and talk to them, but just don't interrupt the flow or the thought process.
Fair enough. And Ryan, you can't, I have not seen too much ring help, but I have seen ring help that are too aggressive, where they're going to...
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah, there's that, but I've never...
Yeah, I don't know about that. I agree with you, not too much.
You brought this up about that person at the major show.
No, we are going to talk about that. We're going to leave butterflies, and what else are we talking about? Butterflies,
unicorns and rainbows and all those. Yeah, there's none of that shit in Oklahoma.
And we talked a little bit about, and I understand those those have a terrible job calling classes to the ring or at the gate to let them in, and sometimes they get cranky.
See, we even got there yet.
Yeah, and I understand.
This was inside the ring.
Oh God! Well, let's. Are you done inside the ring or not?
Yeah, outside the ring, you got to have 2 people.
2.
You want to know why you got to have 2 people? Because one of them has to check off who is supposed to be in the next class, and the other one is got to be calling for the people that are not there. I'm not just saying on the microphone. I'm
chasing
them
physically
down. Chasing them down and yelling, going, "Excuse me, little Johnny, let's go."
Exactly. And do it fun, positive as best you can. Now, if they just are constantly abusing the system, get a little cranky with them, but don't get cranky with that 4-H kid that really doesn't know any different.
Let me tell you something. The first year we had the belt buckle bonanza at Waco, I think I was like a freshman in college, and all the barns weren't built, and my mother gave me a bullhorn and a golf cart because all these cattle and stuff were stalled in tents. It was the most fun I've ever had in my life. I got to yell at people all week.
Oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. What direction should we go next? I've got several other ones that I can bring.
No, I mean, but that's kind of ring help again. If you're going to be on the announcer stand, and I think there needs to be, I think you can get too many people at an announcer stand or announcer's desk, because again, somebody's got to be taking the placings from the person in the ring that wrote them down to make sure what they wrote down is verified, checked, all that, so the results are right. You've got to have one person announcing. Normally, the announcer needs an assistant that will just say, hey, you need to call for class 9, Dorset Advantage, or whatever's next, and so they can remind them of things. Unless there's a whole lot more paperwork that needs to go on and stuff like that up there, I think 3 people on the announcer stand or at the announcers or at the desk, table, whatever, is good, because the more people you get up there, the more distracted those other people are going to get. And so don't think you can ever have too many people in the ring because there's so much to do in terms of assisting exhibitors. I do think you can get too many cooks in the kitchen at an announcer's desk table. And there are people that just want to hang up there so they can interact with the judge or be close to the judge or whatever, and they think that's going to give them a little help.
I thought that was the backdrop when they pinched your rear end.
No, they don't even get me started on that stuff.
I agree completely on all of those, Ryan, and it does make sense. What about how important, and I don't know that we have talked about this briefly, but I don't hear show officials and exhibitors talking about it, but it maybe doesn't get enough attention, and sometimes financially we can't do anything about it. What about the type of bedding and the surface we're showing on?
Ugh.
Yeah. It affects, it's not just, I'm not just talking about the ease of the judge to get around, or it affects the outcome of the show. If we've got deep shavings, those animals that are a little more extended, a little taller, probably going to look a little more proportional versus we're buried. If we've got those deep shavings, we can't see pasterns. We can't see how those feet are hitting the ground. Go to the other extreme down a hard packed like limestone that's almost like concrete. Every animal's going to look terrible on it. It's not a good situation, and it's not easy to make it ideal.
It was a show a few weeks back, and I'm not going to let whatever. I remember texting you, I said, we'd be better on concrete today because at least the concrete would be level.
Yeah. And then the unlevel rings, all those things. What about the rings that maybe we don't, that are mulch or bark or shavings that are real dusty and we're not getting it wet down prior to enough and super dusty? You can't hardly see when the wind kicks up on one side. There's issues there that I think that in itself can be addressed. I want to use a real simple example. And again, they have more funding and are able to do things easier because of the size of the show. But a few years ago at Arizona National, I made the simple request that maybe the lambs and the goats shouldn't show an ankle deep sand, that it's difficult for the judge to walk, that the goats and lambs can't walk properly through it. Immediately the next year, they brought in the pelleted horse bedding that you wet down and expands and just makes a perfect surface. I'm sure that's probably the most expensive or one of the most expensive. But when that bedding is out there wet down and kind of packed down a little bit, it's really, really good. I can appreciate it.
Why the hell didn't you suggest that for the cattle ring before I judged there 2 years in a row?
Yeah, that's outside.
Jackass.
I don't. It's hard though, isn't it? I mean, you're physically wore out, and think about those livestock trying to get through there, just screaming, "Guys, give me a break here."
But no, I in an ideal world, every show ring in America would be the pelletized, packed down shavings. And the one thing about those, when you bed on those, it's great. But I think it's so much better in a ring because every class, multiple animals are going to be moving and they just stay. They offer support. They offer, cushion for those animals, but they don't get dusty. They don't make holes and divots and all those things. So yeah, ideally in a perfect world, every ring would have those, but we all know that that's not going to happen. But things like whether it's keeping the arena at the right amount of moisture, depending on the bedding, because it can get way too dusty and not enough, but it can also, depending on what's out there, you can get it muddy and terrible that way too, where the judge is sinking, animals are sinking, etc. So keeping it at the right level of moisture, whatever the bedding is very important.
And as a judge, Ryan, in some of those arenas that aren't real level, and you're getting them to pull forward to get them all in the profile or something, I feel guilty making that lead person or whoever it is go into that deep old hole.
Yeah.
And sometimes they can't avoid it, and that's no good. We got to do better.
No, the ring needs to be level. And I mean, I'm not going to call out things because I have enough issues trying to get major shows to hire me to judge anyway. But there's a couple of major shows that for years and years and years, even though those are nice facilities that are all, concrete based and level, whatever, there's holes in the arena and they've been there for years and we've never fixed it.
No, they are. And it's hard and it is hard to say what is ideal. As an exhibitor, when you get to some of these shows, you need to know, for lambs and particularly goats, we're probably trying to brace the goats even harder than the lambs at this point. We need to know what kind of footing's out there. And there's that fine line where you want to get that hard brace, but you don't want that hind leg slipping out. And Ryan, you talk about putting your leg in between the back legs of sheep and goats in case they back up and or slip out, all those things that can happen. So take that into consideration. We don't want it too slick. We don't want shavings too deep. Unless you're showing hogs, to me, I recommend 1 foot of deep, fluffy shavings. I'll never see that club foot. I won't see all the bad pasterns. It'll work much better for you.
There you go. Words of wisdom by Del Hummel.
Enough on the betting, you think? We got that covered? It's not easy, guys, and I understand it's not easy. So do the best with what you can, get it level, do the things you can do. And if we can take it a step further, great, but we have to be realistic about it.
Then, in terms of, after talking about volunteers, we've talked about the ring, all those things. One thing that I think goes under noticed, under mentioned, or not thought about at a show is where you put your backdrop. And that sounds pretty lame, but depending on where you put your backdrop is going to do two different things. It's going to dictate a little bit of the flow from animals and exhibitors leaving the arena, because a lot of people want backdrop photos, whether they win or not. And number two, it is going to have a great impact on how many people go over there to take photos that photographer that's there at your show is going to be able to sell. And so while you don't need it right outside the arena gate, you need it where as soon as you leave or exiting, you can see it and it's in close proximity.
Agreed. And I'm going to take it a step further. It is sometimes difficult, and it seems like exhibitors are confused. If they want backdrop pictures of the judge, for the most part, guys, it's going to have to be after that division or the entire show. And I think we need to make it clear when you're going to the backdrop what order we need to get these pictures. Somebody at the backdrop, and it's usually the photographers that do it all the time, and they do a great job. They'll establish, okay, I'm going to do our top 5 starting with 1st through 5th. Make sure that everybody's aware, here's the order we're going in. We don't need to be pushing and jockeying for space. It just is what it is. And I know that we have had shows that I've been to, and it's been in jackpot shows, where they want to do pictures with the judge after each breed. That's great if we don't have very many animals. But if we're going to try to get through it efficiently, we're probably going to have to wait until the end of the show to do that. And I understand you want to get those calves broke down. There's a lot of things that just can't be perfect in that scenario. But I think we should make it very clear to all the exhibitors, and that's what Ryan talked about earlier. Let's be as transparent as possible. If you want a breed picture without the judge right after that breed, the photographer's there, they're ready to do it. Let's just do that. If you want to wait around to the end of the show and get one with the judge, that's fine as well. But let's let them know what the options are, and here's kind of the direction we're going.
And you brought up a good point. I don't think the judge should ever be asked to leave the ring once the show has started to take pictures. If that person needs to go out and, run to the restroom or just needs a break, I mean, everybody knows that I smoke, whatever they need to do, but let's not ask them, oh, can we go take pictures now? Whatever. Save that for the end. If whoever wants a picture with that judge at the backdrop, if they can't wait till the end of the show, after every exhibitor has been tended to in the ring, then they didn't need the picture bad enough with that person in it.
And I think there's some situations, if you're doing a cattle show, Ryan, you have breeding heifers in the morning and then steers in the afternoon. Within that division is what you're saying.
Right. But let's get through the whole heifer show.
Yes, exactly.
And then go take pictures of the top 5 or whoever. And then we can start the steer show. But
many reasons to do that.
Or breeding gilts or market hogs, all those things. I get that, but let's finish the whole show of what we started with, whether it's breeding or market or show. I mean, I get it even after showmanship. Let's finish all of the showmanship, though, and then go take pictures before we move on to the next thing.
Exactly. Perfect. I'm with you. And you brought this up a little bit. I don't know. And in some shows, they're very clearly defined. We're going to break for lunch at a certain time. Or we're going to break for lunch after a certain class. And I think as long as they let the exhibitors know when they're going to break and how long it's going to be, whether it's at a certain time or after a certain class, they can adjust. But sometimes how many times as an exhibitor or parent of an exhibitor, do I have to go ask, are we breaking for lunch? When will it be? How long will it be? Sometimes that doesn't seem to be a priority for those at the desk, because they've got a lot of other things going on, but it's a huge priority for those people getting the animals ready. So always try to make that as clear as possible. When I'm judging, and I think Ryan and I have discussed this, he's the same. I would prefer 99% of the time to roll right through lunch.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that show management doesn't do enough is ask that judge if they want a lunch break or not. Or just any type of break. But those things need to, because just like you're saying, if you're back there preparing animals, those things have to be scheduled in advance. So I don't ever eat at a show. I'm never going to ask for a lunch break. Again, not saying that it's not okay to have lunch breaks. There's lots of judges that want them, do them. It's fine. Just me personally, not. But again, I'll take an example, a pig show. We had close to maybe over 800 head pig show in Ohio a couple weeks, or the beginning of May. I looked the classes in advance and said, hey, you know what? Before we start crossbred breeding gilts, I'm going to need like 5 minutes. So do that so you can announce way in advance and let the exhibitor knows, okay, after Yorkshire gilts are completed and before crossbred breeding gilt, we're going to take a 10-minute break. That's how that needs to work.
Yep, that's simple. I think really, really good. And I think if we can do that and be transparent with the exhibitor, just keep them more informed. And it all revolves around that transparency and just making sure. And there are going to be some situations where maybe the exhibitors need a break because of whatever reason. So we're not saying don't have lunch breaks. I personally, and Ryan would prefer as a judge not to, but that doesn't mean that you can't have them.
Because I'm going to if the show's big enough, I'm going to say, hey, I need to run outside for 5 minutes. Or there's lots of judges that have to stop, go to the restroom, whatever. There's going to be breaks, but I don't personally have to have a 30 or an hour-minute lunch break, but I may have had 30 minutes worth of breaks during the whole show when it's over and said and done. So I'm not saying that you can just stay there in the ring and plow through it the whole way through, but I don't have to have one of those. If the show needs one, the exhibitors want one, that's what they're accustomed to, that's fine. Just make sure it's announced and everybody knows.
Agreed. And Ryan, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'd like you to go just a touch further on the show rules. Let's make it very, very clear and only enforceable rules. And if the rules are in place, we are going to enforce them. It's that simple. We'd used an example in many earlier episodes about twine and leg hair. If you want them to have it on, great, allow it to happen. If you have a rule in there that bans it, make sure that somebody's there at the gate checking for it. Don't always put that on the judge. It's not something they should be doing by any means. So only rules that are enforceable and only rules that you're actually going to enforce to make sure everybody's on that same level playing field, including, not excluding, drug testing rules. And again, when we're at the county fairs and some of the jackpots, we're not worrying about that, but some of them have them. We get to state fairs and national shows. We need it very clearly defined. This is going to be, your animals are going to be urine tested, whatever they want to do from drug testing, just make it apparent. And by gosh, if you have it there, do it well. Consult with Matt Clays, make sure that things are done well. We're not picking up background or cross-contamination. I think if done well, it's a great tool to try to keep things under check. Because guess what, Ryan? The biggest request that I'm getting via Facebook Messenger and text on what episode they want us to do is address the unethical practices in the show ring. And it is an issue. There are people out there, whether it be breeders or fitters or brokers, that are taking shortcuts and almost encouraging their families to take a path that we should not. And they're benefiting greatly from it. And kind of like Dr. Fauci, I think the bricks will come tumbling down once things are done right. And I can assure you, Mr. Clays is working his butt off to improve and implement different procedures at these shows to put everybody on the same playing field. Allow that person that can raise good ones or that can feed and manage well. That is where the advantages should come, not those that are more willing to take risks because they're not worried about the outcome. I got off topic there a little bit, Ryan.
Yeah, but that's
enforceable rules. You're the best one at it.
Yeah, enforceable rules. Okay. Sidetrack, but no. Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to be a bitch, but if you can't enforce the rules, don't have it. Stupid.
And that's the truth. When you have them,
and that's why everybody laughs at my one rule: should all shows start at noon. But the less rules you have, shows are run on manpower and women power and whatever it takes, physical bodies. The less rules you have, the less bodies you have to make sure that everyone is abiding by the rules.
And it is more of a disservice to put a rule in place and not enforce it than not have rules.
You cannot say that enough.
It puts the honest at a disadvantage.
If you're going to have a rule in there and you're not enforcing it and you know you can't, and people are allowed to break it, but because there is going to be a certain section of this population in this industry that is going to push it as far as they can. And so if they know that rule's not going to be enforced, they're going to break that rule. And there is another section of the population that is just not even going to go there. So that section of the population, we would never break a rule. We're not going to push things to the limits, all that stuff. They're getting screwed.
Exactly.
And there's nothing wrong. I'm not going to yell at the people that are pushing it to the limits because they want to be competitive and they want to do whatever. And if they know that that rule is no way enforceable and not going to be, then I can't say they're wrong either, because they're trying to do things that are going to make their kids and their stock more competitive. So it's the other people that are getting screwed.
No, I agree completely. And I think Ryan's been clear. We've addressed that many times, but put some thought into it and take it sincerely. The other thing that we haven't brought up again, and I think we made it very, very clear, but I'm getting messages about it, Ryan, is shows. For crying out loud. There is zero logical reason not to release a judge as soon as you know who that is and it's confirmed. Please do it.
Yeah. No,
I know people are arguing about that, but there is no argument. It just isn't.
There is zero argument in that. Because, again, the only argument that anyone's going to say, we can't release the judge because we don't want anybody to know who it is, so they can't want to pick a better judge that's not going to be political. End of story. Damn it.
And that judge that you hire for those that are going to benefit from the politics, they're already going to know. In case you're wondering, they're going to know. So it's just ridiculous. Don't try to argue that one. Don't fight it. Release the damn judge. Enough said.
And do it sooner than later, because we all, I can't, I'll get on a tirade. But anyway.
Let's go on to another one.
Yeah.
What about the 2 rings, Ryan? I've run into it a little bit lately, and I don't have an answer for it, but I think we need to make it clear from the show officials, because I think they get put in a bad position sometimes. When we have the bigger jackpot shows that are 2 rings, whether one's going the females on one side and males on the other, or different species, we always run into a situation where an exhibitor needs to be in 2 rings at the same time. Some shows will wait for that exhibitor to come out and be done and come in. At bigger shows, it probably just isn't practical.
So this is going to be unpopular. That's okay.
Well, I don't think there's a good answer, Ryan.
I'm not saying there's not a good answer, but this is still going to be an unpopular opinion of mine, and that's fine. Whatever, from a show management perspective, you have to decide at the beginning what you're going to do. Because if you're going to wait, so every kid gets to show their animal in every ring, you've got to do it for everyone, every single person, not just that one that the mother or the dad's super pushy and gets up there in your face and says, no, by God, I paid my $65 and my kid, you're going to wait on my kid, whatever. You have to do it the same for everyone. This is kind of like, the rules have to be the same for everyone enforceable. This has to be the same. It is my opinion, and I can stand behind this as a showman, as a broker, as a judge. If you know there's going to be a multiple ring show, and there's a possibility that your kid is going to have animals going into multiple rings, get someone else to show your animal.
I agree.
There are plenty of competent, capable individuals at every show that can show. Maybe that one can't show it quite as good as Little Johnny, but can do it well and not screw anything up. And it is better for the flow of the show, all the exhibitors, the judge, everything, than waiting. And again, that's not going to be popular, and send me the hate mail, because we have shows in Texas that are 4 rings. I've never made a show wait for one of my kids that was showing. I put another kid in there, found another kid, etc., to keep the show going.
Agreed. I think that's dead on, Ron. I don't think there's a choice. I really don't. You can't. And I know some shows do it, and maybe it works for them if it's not that large of a show and they're not pressed for time. Maybe. There's one more thing, Ryan, and I'm going to use Circle Back because our listeners love Circle Back so much. We talk about enforceable rules. We've talked about this on a previous episode and our preferences on weighing and declared weights and things like that. I'm not going to get into the argument over what's best. I prefer declared weights with the weigh-back. But if you're going to have a weigh-back and you're going to weigh those animals as they're coming out of the ring or as they're pulling in the top 5, it's probably a good idea to enforce it if you're going to take the time to do it, period. And not saying be hard on a kid or anything like that, but it's just this simple. If you've given them an acceptable percentage or an acceptable amount of pounds, they chose to push it that much further, it's on them. So if you have a way back, enforce it.
And this episode is going long, but this kind of parlays into and we could have a whole nother episode on this because we're not going to get to cover everything. One of the things that I wanted to make sure, what you're saying, I don't care if it's a way in, a way back, whatever it is, enforce it, make sure it's right. But one thing that happens to me a lot at shows, and in the two ways it happens the most is that, well, we had people turn in our weight, and it's up to you. If you see one that's out of line, out of bounds, all that other stuff, then you tell us and we'll go, no.
Oh, my.
No, I'm not doing that.
I am out.
No, this happens more than you ever will know, Dale.
I know.
And no, I am not show management. I am not here. I am here to judge what is out there in the arena in front of me. And that's what I'm there to do. That is the job you gave me. That is what I'm going to do. I'm not doing that. That needed to be handled by the people running the show. So every time I'm going to say it's close to 40% of the shows say something like that.
I'm going to take it another direction, Ryan.
Well, and then the other thing that I also bring this up, the judge is the judge. The judge is not show management. So we were talking about people being late for classes, missing classes, all that stuff. Don't look at that judge and say, well, should we wait or should we go? That's not their decision. That's show management's decision, whether you're going to wait or whether you're going to roll on. And one thing that I want to tell all shows, if a kid is late for a class or misses a class and it is done by weights, I realize on breeding stock, if ages, it's a little different. Let that kid roll into the next class if they want to, if it's done by weights. Maybe they're going to be at a disadvantage because they're a lighter weight. They still get to show. But don't make the judge do anything else besides sort the animals in the ring.
No, and it does happen a lot. And I'm with you on that bumping up a class. Now, if it's done often and intentional because they wanted to avoid somebody in the lighter class, I don't know where you draw the line. But again, if it's that honest mistake, they just missed it and that kid's standing at the ring and they brought one animal to that show they may have traveled hours to get to, let them come in the next class. It's fine. And I'm going to go a little further, and maybe it's just me, and I'm going to bet Ryan is on board as well. I do not take the apparent weight if there's a big weight difference in a class. It has very little. Maybe it's subconscious.
Zero to do with how it
has nothing
sorts
to do
out.
with where I'm going to place the animals. Nothing. It just doesn't. It's all
good
about
ones are good ones, great ones are great ones,
Yeah.
and shitty ones are shitty ones, regardless of weight.
So we're all concerned about what class we get into, if we're going to be too heavy or too light. Maybe that's the case, and some judges are going to weigh them more than not. But it comes into play with me zero, absolutely zero. So take a deep breath about it, and it's okay.
I can't say that enough. You hired the judge to judge. That's what he needs to do. That's what she needs to do. They're not there to manage this thing. They're not to tell you how to run it. All of that needs to be done by the people that it's supposed to be done by. Let that sort the show, and that's it.
Okay, and I know we're running long. I'm going to bring a couple more up, Ryan, real quick. I had a situation in a show recently. We had a big ring, and they were breaking the heats in showmanship down and it was sheep or goats, or sheep and goats. They were breaking it down to maybe 5, 6, or 7 in a heat, where maybe we only had 2 heats. We could bring all 12 or 15 in the ring with plenty of room. I am a big fan, if the ring can accommodate it, to bring as many as we can and let the judge see them all at the same time.
I am a fan of showmanship being all in one thing if the ring can accommodate, because I am terrible about the fact that if it's in heats, and I know most shows, if you're going to have heats, I am terrible about the fact of, well, you know what? I either have to keep 1 in this heat or 3 because this one obviously needs to come back. And but there's 2 that are on the same level or 3 on the same level. And I know they may not make it to the top 10 or top 5. But if you keep 1 of them, you got to keep 3 more. And so the more you can get in a showmanship division per heat, so you can see the actual competition, because like most commonly you have to place 10 a lot of times, or 5. It's not just winner takes all or grand reserve. So if you can get it to 2 heats, then you know half of the kids. And the first thing you're like, All right, if I got 10, then I know these 6 out of this heat need to come back. Or I know these 3 out of this heat need to come back because I'm only placing 5. The multiple heat deal, you think you're helping the kids, you're not. Because most people are not going to give the benefit of the doubt when there's only one that they know needs to make it. They're only going to pick one. They're not going to be the person like, well, I got to pick 1 or 3 or 4 in this heat, and so I'm going to do 4. Because most people hate judging showmanship. They don't like it. That's just plain, simple facts. They do not like judging showmanship. And so they want it to be as quick and painless as possible. So the more you can put in an arena, and they still have ample and adequate space to maneuver and set their animals up, the better off you'll be.
And that's correct. I'm the one that keeps more from a heat because I'm fearful that all of a sudden I just had all of the good kids in one heat. And then sometimes it happens that way, not very often. But then we've got a kid that got into the deeper heat that maybe didn't make the cut, and you're pulling kids from the next heat that weren't as good as that individual. So there's lots of reasons, and I know we can't avoid heats. The ring size aren't always large enough. Lots of reasons, but do make those heats as large as you can that still fit comfortably into that ring. The other thing, Ryan, real quick, and we did talk about this. Do you personally prefer showmanship at the beginning or at the end, or does it matter?
I think showmanship is better for the. See, this is going to be really stupid answer, but anyway. I think if you're an exhibitor or a kid, showmanship is better at the beginning because your animal isn't tired. They haven't been in the ring. They haven't figured out the exit gate, all of those things. I prefer to judge showmanship at the end because I've seen them all go and I know who's going to win before we even start showmanship.
It's very simple on that side of it. As an exhibitor, Ryan, if showmanship's
I said as an exhibitor, I would want to go at the beginning. As a judge, I want it at the end. Because I already know who's going to win showmanship if they come in the ring.
As an exhibitor or the families I'm coaching, unless showmanship is a huge priority, and in some parts of the world it is, some parts it isn't. In my kids personally, unless they come to me, and let's say showmanship is at the beginning, and sometimes we have the same judge judging showmanship at the beginning at a big show that's going to be judging the animal later. We can't make that animal expect him to look perfect twice or as perfect twice. And Ryan talked about figuring out the exit gate and all those other things. So at the higher level shows, I'm not going to take the chance of that animal getting tired, going in the ring, not 100%, all of those things if showmanship's at the beginning. And that's maybe being a little bit anal.
My mother's association, the TJLA and stuff, we have designated official showmanship shows. And so the kids that I helped, of course, if it was one of those 8 official showmanship shows, showmanship was always at the beginning. And yeah, we would do it there. Other jackpot shows, as much as I love showmanship and as important as I am, just for the exact reasons you said, whether it's jackpot or Kansas City, who has showmanship, we're not going. We're not getting the animal out. We're not going to get that animal hot and tired. We're not going to get that kid hot and tired. We're not going to give any chance to, and a lot of times there's a different showmanship judge than the actual judge. Somebody seeing that animal not look 100%, and whether it's the actual judge standing outside of the ring or the showmanship judge saying, oh, I just did showmanship. And this isn't intentional, but like people just talk about what they see. And man, oh man, did XYZ's calf, God, he got hot. No, just you're opening yourself up to too much, way too much.
That is exactly right. And I hope people understand. So I'm not saying there's a right or wrong to this, but at least now you understand where Ryan and I's thoughts are and what direction we see pluses and minuses. And you have to play into the role. Is showmanship more important to you than the show? Ryan and I are probably putting more emphasis on the show. And I'm not saying that's right. It's just kind of how it's evolved. But I do respect the fact that showmanship is the most important. And I'll tell you what, if that was the case everywhere, it would be easier to maybe stick to the basics and what our industry is all about. But it's difficult. I don't know if there's a great answer either way. A couple more quick ones, Ryan. Proper gating system for pigs. I can address it quickly. In an ideal world, if we have gates doubled up where we can have the front row to work the hogs in the ring, the back row waiting to come in for the next class, just to keep the flow. Basically, an in and out gate, a gating system that allows for efficient flow. How does that sound, Ryan?
Yep.
And nothing, I mean, you set that your ring up, everyone's going to be different however you can, but ideally that next class of hogs needs to be there ready to come out. And I
No,
want
and the double gate thing is by far the best. And that is, and then again, we're going so long and we could talk about so much more.
that's okay. We can.
Probably need to have another episode on this, but one thing when you're judging a hog show, and I'm sure Dale's the same way because he just brought this up, I want to see every single one of those pigs come at me individually the first time. After I get that, the way my mind works, it's not as important, even if I pin back 5, whatever. But that first time, I want to see that one come out by itself alone. So if you're a gate person, wait for that judge to signal for the next one to come, because it may take me 5 seconds or 15 seconds to get my first opinion on that hog, but I want that kid to have that one shot by itself alone to do it.
Exactly. Perfect. Talking the top 5, Ryan, shows will ask you as a judge, what do you want to do? I've always accommodated whatever they choose, but I think you and I, and we've talked about it, in most shows, if we pull the top 5 out and talk them on the microphone and take time to talk to each individual kid that did not make that top 5, one-on-one, the flow, I think the genuine interaction between the judge and those kids that did not make the top 5 is a huge positive. I think there's a lot to that, and I think most, and I don't know, I guess I'm not going to every jackpot show in the country, but would you say most shows are good with that, Ryan, that you're at?
Yeah, I think it depends on the size of a show, and probably this is going to sound discriminatory or racist or sexist. I don't know, however, but I think that for some reason, cattle shows, they want all their animals talked on the mic more, and sheep, goats, and pigs are way cooler with the fact that, we're just going to talk the top 5. I don't understand why it's that way, but just my experience, cattle people get angrier, even if they're 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. I was doing a show in Cheyenne, Wyoming the other day. There was 16 head in a class, and again, I talked to every single one of them, but like, if I would have just done the top 5, people would have been angry. When we did the top 5 in every other species, perfectly fine. I'm going to go to, and I'm going to tell every single kid, if they don't make the top 5, whether it's they're getting excused in a pig class or in a sheep and goat class where we're only talking the top 5, something good about that animal, why they got pulled, I think that's fine. I am a person that talks long, and so I try to judge more efficiently because I am long-winded, because I want to give as much detailed description about that animal. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the talking top 5. Cattle people get angry.
Agreed. I think it's just one of those oddities that's out there. And if there's 6 or 7 in a class, just talk them all. Just roll with it and go with the size of the show and try to make it as efficient.
I would rather have a person talk those top 5 as good as they can than talk 13 averagely.
And when you get down to that 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, it's hard not to just,
you're going to group me in 9 to 30. Oh, as we round out the class, that bullshit. I've said that before. If you're going to talk every animal, talk every single animal individually. So again, I'd rather have a person talk 5 spot on and in detail than talk 15 head commonly.
Agreed. One last area, Ryan, and again, we may just have to have another episode on this, but climate control.
I'm going to get kicked out of this hotel. I'm just telling you right now.
Climate control at a ring. Now, I know we can't always control the climate, but if we're at a county fair and it's the middle of July, a fan or something's probably a good idea. If we're in the north and it's February, some form of heat in the arena is probably a good idea. Just make it as comfortable for not only the judge, the exhibitors, everybody involved. And I thought this was crazy. I believe it's a West Virginia show. We've got an open-sided building, Ryan. At least 3 of the sides were open. And I look up and there's like an air conditioning system that's blowing down into the ring. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't going to do very much good, until I found that sweet spot in the ring that I could stand, and that air conditioner was blowing right on me. I thought it was the best thing in the world.
again, I've judged in every type of climate there is, and from negative 23 degrees in Grand Island, Nebraska to 111 at the Illinois State Fair one time, I think. But yeah, make it. And I'm going to say for me, I am more worried about the animals and the exhibitors, like, especially when it's hot. I mean, if it's cold, unless you've got a climate controlled ring, there's nothing you can do. And even in those climate controlled rings, there's still not a great deal you can do. If it's just miserably freaking cold outside, it's going to be miserably cold in there because the ground's going to be cold that you're walking on. You got to have a door open to get those whatever. So yeah, climate controlled deals in the winter are nice and they help, but the heat is way harder on animals than the cold is. Would you not agree with that, Dale?
I absolutely. And if it's,
and so my thing is, I would much rather you have fans, and a lot of people bring in fans to shows. They position them awfully. Like,
correct.
They put them in every wrong position you could. And again, I'm not trying to be negative or, bitchy. Put those fans in positions that are going to help those kids, and try to keep the air flowing to all of the exhibitors and their animals more than the judge or the ring help. Because literally, they'll bring in a fan that only the judge is going to get any air out of. That's bullshit.
It's not good.
That's one person compared to the whole rest of the people that paid to be at your show.
I brought up the example, I think, on an earlier episode, Ryan, that on one of the West Coast shows long ago, it was 100 degrees and we're showing hogs at a state fair. And I get on the microphone. These kids are out there in full corduroy FFA jackets. And I said, guys, just leave those jackets in the back. It's okay. They were sweating. They were red-faced. The hogs were hot. We just need to get them in and out of the ring and keep the exhibitors and the hogs as comfortable as we can. And the ag teachers came unglued, Ryan. And by gosh, they were not allowed not to come in the ring. We need to implement some common sense. If it's hot, we're going to move through those classes a little faster. We're going to do everything we can to accommodate the animals and the exhibitors. And I do worry, Ryan, when it gets real hot about your mascara running a little bit.
Well, I'd rather my mascara run than a kid go down or an animal go down because of heat exhaustion. So
agreed. Well, Ryan, this topic was good. I enjoyed.
We do not have time for question and answer because I'm telling you, they've knocked.
We
on
have
the door
to have
twice.
one question and answer. The listeners have submitted these to me and they expect them. One question and answer.
When I get arrested,
remember,
I have to pay another $200 for this hotel for a day. I'm charging you.
I got you covered. My wife can shift it from our cabin bill.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna narrow this one down. Samantha brings to us, says, Ryan, why don't you take your mother to more shows with you?
Because she's crazy.
That is not an acceptable answer.
And she's mean, and she's annoying. And she tells me how I do everything wrong. That is why everyone thinks Cherie is this sweet, beautiful soul who is the epitome of rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. You people are all wrong. You should have lived with her since birth. That woman is not who you think she is. And she does everything better than anyone else. She just puts on a better act. She was at a show with me yesterday. First thing I go, I don't think you did this. I can never do anything to the level of greatness that Cherie could do it if she was asked, even though she's never judged a show in her life. She never showed an animal. She could do it better than me all the time. So y'all can believe whatever you want about that woman. I love my mother. She is been a very amazing. I couldn't be asked for a better mother in a whole lot of ways. She also has a dark side, people, that y'all don't say. Enough said.
I'm going to stick up for Cherie.
Of course you will, because you're just like her. I've never met two people that are more alike than you two.
We just have opinions.
Mm-hmm. And delusions.
Ryan, you're getting ready to get kicked out. I can see my children gathering outside the cabin here, thinking, Dad, it's time to go do something. So,
well, you're sitting in a truck using OnStar Wi-Fi. That's got to be illegal somehow.
I'm just shocked that it works this well. I'm very thankful. Wi-Fi or OnStar, I didn't activate it until this trip because I had to.
I'm going to go on the record and say that we didn't get enough covered on this topic, and there needs to be another one. Maybe not next week, but because there's still a lot of shit that needs to be said. But anyway.
Agreed, Ryan. Thank you so much.
And I'm all about the unethical practices one. I didn't know, whatever. I'm all about getting that one too.
We are getting a lot of requests for it, Ryan, and I get it. I understand it.
I've been requesting since we started the podcast, and it got nowhere with me, Dale Hummel.
It's gonna bring hate mail. I promise you.
Oh, because that bothers me so much.
Okay, until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear? If I'm not in jail.